Welcome to the Helping Writers Become Authors podcast. I'm KM Weiland, and I am here to take you deep with story theory, writing techniques, and the incredible wisdom of story. I believe story is the greatest power on this earth, and that as writers, we carry the torch of wielding that power with responsibility, passion, and skill. There's no such thing as just a story. Today, it is my honor and my purpose to help you write your best story, astound the world, and maybe change your life. Hello and welcome. You are listening to Season 17, Episode 14. One of the most exciting challenges in storytelling is writing characters who grow over time, not just within a single story, but across several. Whether you're working on a series or revisiting a familiar protagonist in a new standalone, the question inevitably rises: how do you create different character arcs for the same character without repeating yourself? How do you honor what's come before while still offering readers something new? In many ways, this is where character development becomes the most rewarding, when you're not just building a compelling arc, but an evolving journey. Now, last month, we did a bit of exploring about how to vary your character arcs by using the Enneagram system to identify different internal conflicts for characters with different personality types. We also talked about how pairing Enneagram insights with the archetypal life cycle can generate arcs that are not only distinct, but also deeply resonant. However, as I mentioned last week in the first installment in this two-part series, the more I sat with that discussion, the more I realized there was another layer we hadn't fully uncovered. What happens when you're writing different character arcs for the same character? The reader question that originally inspired these discussions about how to use the Enneagram's 9 types to avoid repetitive lies the character believes sparked for me a larger reflection, not just on personality theory, but on long-term character development. If you're writing a series or revisiting a character across multiple stories, you've likely asked yourself, how do I keep this arc feeling fresh? What else can this character learn, face, or become? The challenge isn't just variety for its own sake, rather it's about honoring the integrity of your characters while continuing to push their evolution in meaningful ways. Last week, I offered 6 progressive systems that you can use to help you chart long-term serial character arcs for your character. This week, I want to dig into some general principles for approaching a character's journey as an unfolding process that stretches beyond a single arc. So welcome to this week's episode, How to Write Different Character Arcs for the Same Character, Part 2 of 2. And this episode is sponsored by Damonza.com, the go-to experts in book cover design. They've designed many of my covers, and now they're offering something special, a free, no-obligation review of your book cover. Whether you're close to publishing or just curious, this review will give you a fresh, expert perspective on how your cover holds up in today's competitive landscape. So don't miss out. Go to damonza.com/review/WBA to grab your free review. All right, so let's start by exploring the 2 different approaches you might find yourself in when writing multiple books. The first is the possibility that you are writing totally different character arcs for each new story. This might be because you're writing an entirely new cast of characters and don't want to repeat yourself, or it could be because you're writing an episodic series in which you want to explore new plots and arcs in each installment. In either case, the simplest rule of thumb when wanting to write different character arcs for the same character is to focus on exploring different external aspects. So basically, write a different plot. Now, a relatively good example of this is the MCU, which featured dozens of stories set in the same story world. The series often succeeded in creating varied character arcs by offering varied or unexpected plots. For example, Tony Stark's themes of escapist irresponsibility created very different themes from Peter Parker's mistakes of teenage naivety. So here are a few tools you can use to help you accomplish this variation. Number 1, Robert McKee's Thematic Square. Plot is tied to character arc, which is tied to theme. The Thematic Square is a storytelling tool developed by Robert McKee in his book Story that helps writers explore theme from multiple angles by identifying not only the central value, for example, love, and its opposite, for example, hate, but also a contrary value, for example, indifference, and its negation, for example, self-hatred. In a single story, this can help you create layered moral complexity and richer character conflict. However, by exploring a different quadrant of the square in different stories, you can visit various thematic neighborhoods within the same world from story to story. Number 2, explore different archetypal roles, and this goes beyond the life cycle. So in addition to the continuity of the archetypal life cycle, which I mentioned last week and which you can read more about in my book, Writing Archetypal Character Arcs, you can also focus on other ancillary archetypes. For example, exploring how your character manifests the trickster aspects of personality in one story, the rebel in another, and the caregiver in still another, can create opportunities for wildly different character arcs. So here's a quick list of the many possibilities that you could draw on here. The trickster, which brings chaos, humor, and unexpected change, often disrupting the status quo. The ally supports others through trials as a loyal companion. The shapeshifter changes form or allegiance, often creating doubt and intrigue. The innocent seeks happiness and safety, often symbolizing purity or naivety. The orphan craves belonging and connection after experiencing loss or abandonment. The rebel challenges norms and fights against injustice or oppression. The sage pursues truth and knowledge, often as a detached observer. The creator builds, innovates, or brings visions into reality. And the caregiver protects and nurtures others, often sacrificing personal needs. And again, those are just a few of the many possibilities for archetypes that can be activated within any one character at certain times in your story. Number 3, explore different backstory ghosts. So finally, as you seek to generate new and different character arcs throughout your series, remember that the catalyst for any character arc is the character's backstory ghost, which is sometimes called the wound. To explore different character arcs for the same character, look at different catalyzing events in your character's past. This is a common, although often overdone, approach for TV series. When they finish one story arc and need to pursue a fresh angle, they will often reveal new and unexpected events in the character's pasts that link them to new conflicts. For example, after wrapping up its initial storyline and associated character arcs in Season 5, Supernatural extended its run by introducing new backstory elements, notably the main character's reaction to secrets in their family's past, including the fact that their mother had been a hunter before meeting their father. Okay, so now, what if you're writing a series with an overarching plot that goes deep with a thematically cohesive character arc for your protagonist? In that case, how do you keep each story's exploration of this overarching theme fresh and interesting while also advancing the bigger arc? The first thing to remember here is that in any story or series of stories, the thematic truth a character learns, and therefore the successive lies the character believes that must be overcome, exist along an ever-evolving spectrum. Therefore, even though the character may learn some version of an ultimate truth by the story's end, that truth will be built of many smaller realizations and epiphanies along the way. To progress that thematic through line in a way that feels both realistic and also deep and nuanced, the most important trick is simply to listen to your characters. And really this means listen to yourself. Listen to your own deep, innate knowing of how personal change occurs and what questions, roadblocks, sacrifices, and triumphs are likely to feel resonant along the way. And here are a few tips and tricks for deepening your theme from book to book in a series. Number 1, explore different inner facets. In any dramatic personal change, and therefore in any dramatic character arc, many different facets of the person will be affected. Depending on the length of your series, you have the opportunity to go deep with many different ways your characters are affected by the changes they are undergoing. For example, in one story, you might explore how the change impacts the protagonist's relationships, while in another, you might explore how it impacts the protagonist's experience of hope versus despair, while still another might delve into issues of ongoing personal integrity in the face of the changes the character is confronting. Number 2, change up the supporting cast. One of the easiest ways to open new opportunities for exploring different facets of your characters is to change up the supporting cast. The thematic elements that arise from your protagonist's interaction with a parent will be very different from the thematic elements that arise from your protagonist's interaction with a love interest or frenemy. The only caution here is to make sure that in changing up the cast dynamics, you are not shortchanging the screen time of any key relationships that may, in fact, be the primary reason readers are there in the first place. Number 3, explore consequences from previous books. The juiciest part of any series is its unparalleled ability to go deep with its own consequences. If you're uncertain how your character's arc might be different in a subsequent book, start by asking yourself, what's changed? What did the characters do or have done to them in the previous book that has consequences? How did the conclusion of the character arc in the previous book change how the character views the world or himself or herself? Just start pulling threads and exploring what new thematic avenues may now be open to you. For example, the BBC show Pdark was particularly good at this from season to season. Its protagonist, Ross Pdark, rarely made a decision that didn't have unforeseen but still realistic consequences. One example is his secret purchase of his cousin's widow's shares in his then worthless mine in order to gift her with needed money. When that mine later became profitable, he was accused by his nemesis of underhanded dealings in stealing from her. And number 4, emphasize different emotions. So finally, one of the easiest ways to tap into new and different character arcs for the same character is to explore different emotions. If anger predominated in one book, then perhaps joy or love may be the focus of another. If confidence and self-realization showed up in one book, then despair or disillusionment may follow. Particularly, think about how the positive or negative charge of one emotional theme can arc into its opposite. For example, in a long series, a defeat may follow a victory, may follow a defeat. Obviously, no one book should focus exclusively on a single emotion, but you can go deep with one emotion as a way of shining its particular shade of color onto the larger stage of your stories and series themes. Exploring different character arcs for the same character invites writers into some of the richest possibilities storytelling has to offer. It asks you to think deeply about the long-term consequences of change, how different parts of a character's psyche can take center stage at different times, and how transformation itself evolves. So whether you're crafting a series, revisiting an old character, or simply playing with the idea of continuity across your stories, this kind of narrative layering can open up new creative depths for both you and your readers. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. But if you're fascinated by the deeper structure behind character arcs, and especially how they connect to theme, check out my book, Writing Your Story's Theme. In it, I explore how character change is naturally intertwined with plot and theme. These big three naturally work together to create cohesive and resonant stories. So whether you're writing a standalone series or weaving a multi-arc journey across a series, your character's emotional evolution is most impactful when it's inextricably tied to the thematic heart of your story. Writing Your Story's Theme offers a step-by-step approach to identifying, developing, and integrating theme at every stage of your story's structure and your character's growth. It's the perfect companion for writers who want their stories to resonate on every level. And it's available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. And you can find that on the store on my site at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com. And I hope you'll stop by and tell me your opinion. Have you ever written different character arcs for the same character across multiple stories? What challenges or discoveries did you encounter in keeping those arcs fresh and meaningful? And that brings us to the end of this episode of Helping Writers Become Authors. I hope you'll stop by the site for a full transcript of this episode and to join in the conversation in the comments. Tune in for next week's episode, where we'll continue to explore all things writing and storytelling. If you'd like to support the podcast, it always means a ton when you take a moment to leave a quick rating or review on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or Spotify. To stay updated on all the latest content I create for you, the best way is to join my mailing list at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com/mailing list. You'll also immediately gain access to lots of free resources, including my books, Crafting Unforgettable Characters and 5 Secrets of Story Structure. For real-time connection with me, more writing advice, and behind-the-scenes glimpses, follow me on Instagram at authorkmwyland. A heartfelt thank you to each one of you for your support and enthusiasm, and especially those of you who support my work on patreon.com/kmwyland. You help make my site, this podcast, and so many other resources available to writers everywhere. So until next week, keep writing, keep dreaming, and most importantly, keep being true to your stories. Thank you for being part of Helping Writers Become Authors.